Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to yet another Planetarium live stream. I'm your host, Patrick Hess, the Planetarium Specialist at Union Station, coming to you live from the Pleiades star cluster, one of my favorite Messier objects. If you want to learn more about Messier objects, be sure to rewatch one of our previous live streams. You can find on our Facebook pages. You can watch recordings of all of our live streams there if you missed any. Welcome. Today's stream will be our What's Up stream for the week. I'm going to take a little tour of the night sky and show you different stars and constellations you'll see this coming week. Assuming the weather holds out, forecast isn't looking amazing, but fingers crossed we'll get some good luck towards the end of the week and be able to go stargazing. If you are joining us, once again, thanks for tuning in again. You all supporting us on these live streams have been hugely helpful in getting the word out and keeping everybody involved with Union Station's programs, as well as Science City and the Planetarium. So thank you for your continued support. Thank you for liking and subscribing to all of our pages, including the Arvin Gottlieb Planetarium's page. Thank you for telling your friends about us and sharing these videos. And a special thank you to everyone who supports us in other ways, especially our 10,000 members who support us through their yearly memberships, and to everyone else who has donated over the past few weeks. Any little bit has helped a huge amount, and it's allowed us to keep doing these programs. So thank you, and thank you in advance for continuing to support us in any way you can as well. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. To give you a little primer of how our schedule works, on Mondays we do a live tour of the night sky. As I said, our What's Up stream for the week, where I tell you different stars and constellations and show them to you so you can find things in our night sky over the course of the week. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. we'll be streaming as well. Wednesdays is our deep dive stream day, though, where we take a deep dive into a topic that interests us in astronomy. We've taken a look at our solar system, taken a tour around all the planets, minor planets, and other objects. We've learned about the evolution of stars, how they're born and how they die. We've looked at the Messier catalog of objects, as I mentioned, and we've talked about probes and rovers, and we've even set up a telescope in the middle of my living room. So if you missed any of those previous live streams, you can rewatch all of them. They are recorded and available on all of our Facebook pages. This coming Wednesday, in a couple days, we are going to be doing a live stream all about the Golden Record, the message that humans prepared and attached to the Voyager space probes. We talked a little bit about this on our probes and rovers stream, and there was a lot of audience interest in doing this, so I've actually shuffled my schedule, and we are going to be talking all about the Golden Record this Wednesday. So don't miss that one. That's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be kind of a fun live stream too, because we'll actually be listening to some of the tracks on the Golden Record and seeing some of the photos that they added, and we'll talk about the story of how the Golden Record came together as well. And that'll be Wednesday's stream. Now, a little slight update to our live stream schedule. This Friday, we're going to have a Fan Friday stream like we've been doing, where we will answer all of your questions live. But this will be our final Fan Friday stream for the time being. As the weather gets nicer, people are looking for other things to do on Friday evenings, and we understand that's the case. So we're going to shuffle our schedule a little bit and make sure that we are bringing you all the science and entertainment at the times you all want it. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't be answering questions on all of our other streams. Be sure to throw in questions or comments in the comment section of the video pages on today's stream, on Wednesday's stream, and Friday's stream, and we'll be answering those live as well. So don't worry, even though Fan Fridays are going away, we are still going to be answering your fan questions live on air. And after this week, we will be continuing the Monday and Wednesday stream schedule as it goes. So Monday will be our What's Up stream for the week, our star tour, and then Wednesday we'll continue doing our deep dives into a bunch of other awesome astronomy topics. So another thing I've been doing on our Monday streams is I've been going over a little bit of space news, fun news stories that have popped up over the course of the past week. And there have been a couple of fun ones that have popped up I wanted to mention a little bit. There is a comet that is actually visible to the naked eye in our evening sky. Now, it's a bit hard to see here in the Northern Hemisphere, but I'll show you how to find it if you would like. Its name is Comet Swan. And this comet has been around for a while. In fact, parts of it have actually this is a separate comet. This is Comet Atlas. But there are a few comets that have been active and have been in the news over the past few months. Atlas was a very famous one, but as you can see in these photos, it has broken up since then. And then Comet Swan was a little less visible, but it's actually becoming a lot brighter. And you'll be able to see it if you'd like. And here is a little chart. There's another one down here. This is a really cool little time-lapse group of photos showing sort of video of the tail of the comet flying by. And this comet will be barely visible to the naked eye. And this chart will show us its path. So this is a May here. So basically tomorrow morning, it'll be right here in this location. It's kind of moving along this path here. Now, its position is visible in the early morning, so the constellation Pisces will be rising right before sunrise. And it's going to be really close to the horizon, so depending on where you are, if there is any landscapes or architecture in your way, that might inhibit your view of the comet. But you should be able to see this barely with the naked eye or with a pair of binoculars or basic telescope. But that is the path of Comet Swan that'll be visible if you'd like to check that out. Pretty cool. Let's see, what else have we got? Yes, so there was an interesting story that popped up, an announcement you may have also heard of, that scientists announced that the closest black hole ever confirmed was, confirmed, I guess. This black hole is just 1,000 light years away from Earth, which is a lot closer than any other black hole we found. And I've actually pulled up that black hole for us to see. Funnily enough, it's actually already in our software, so I guess whoever made the space engine software took sort of a guess, and they decided that this binary system likely had a black hole around it, and, well, astronomers have confirmed that that is the case. So there are 2 stars in this binary system, although it's not a binary system anymore because there are 3 objects in this system, the third being a black hole. And here it is. Now this it can be found in the constellation Telescopium, which is a southern hemisphere constellation, and this was confirmed by the European Southern Observatory in Chile. They confirmed that this black hole is close to the Earth. Now don't worry, it's not that close. This black hole is still 1,000 light years away, far enough away that we cannot be influenced by it at all. And this is a relatively small black hole as well, not much bigger than the mass of our sun. And in fact, it's just even really barely showing up on our view here. But nonetheless, there it is. So pretty cool that we found a black hole sort of almost in our stellar neighborhood, pretty close to us. And then one last kind of fun and weird story that popped up, and I figured was worth mentioning because this was, I guess we could say, an official announcement. The director of NASA, Jim Bridenstine, he announced that NASA is working with Tom Cruise to produce some kind of film aboard the International Space Station. Now, there aren't any other details besides this announcement that was made. So we don't know if this is going to be a feature-length film or documentary. We don't know if Tom Cruise is going to the International Space Station, but it is pretty interesting. In addition to pushing the scientific advancements of our knowledge of deep space and astronomy, NASA has in the past also been a great resource for science literacy and just spreading a science education and just interest in science. And the more people who are interested in science, the better. And things like this can sometimes get people interested in science who wouldn't have been otherwise. So kind of a funny sort of human interest story. We'll track that as it develops. We'll see what happens. But again, that was, we could make the argument that it was an official announcement by NASA. So kind of funny there. So we did get a question already from Eric asking about the Saturn V rocket, and specifically if we today could build something like the Saturn V rocket. And he's also asking how much power would we need to get to Mars. Now, the Saturn V rocket, I'm sure if we wanted to build again, we could, but there are other rockets that are being developed by both NASA and other companies that have even more power than the Saturn V rocket. NASA is working on developing their space launch system, which they've actually tested a couple years ago, and they're planning on using that for some of their deeper space missions. And certain configurations of that are planned to be even more powerful than the Saturn V. SpaceX has already launched their Dragon, or their Falcon Heavy, rather, which was basically just 3 Falcon rockets strapped together to form a super rocket, and they did launch that, and they actually proved that that rocket could reach Mars. Now, you might have heard that was a story of They launched a Tesla car on board that rocket, and the reason they did that is they just needed something heavy to send to space. They didn't want to send a satellite or anything because it was just a test mission. So rather than attaching a really heavy weight to the top of their rocket, they just decided to put a car there, and it was kind of a fun publicity stunt. But that rocket did actually exceed an orbit that would be necessary to reach Mars. So that rocket does have the capability to get to Mars. So we're going to jump on ahead and dive into our star tour. So we're going to return to Stellarium, our favorite free planetarium software. We're going to take a little virtual tour of our local skies, and this is our view from Kansas City right now. We can see we're standing on the lawn at the World War I Museum and Memorial. This is a simulated view of the sky, of course. From where I'm looking downtown, there are quite a few clouds, so luckily with our simulated view of the sky, we can remove the clouds. And we can already see our daytime star, the sun, setting over here in the west. As time goes on, it's setting later and later and appearing higher and higher in the sky as the days get longer. But we are interested in our night sky, so we are going to fast forward time here, and we're going to head on to sunset. Sun's going to set over behind the IRS building there, and the stars are going to pop out. Now I'm going to pause right at sunset, and I've been pointing this out for a few weeks now, and this will be something you will definitely see in our skies if you get a clear view of the sky without clouds. You'll see a very bright point of light setting in the west, and this point of light is so bright you'll even see it in the daytime sky before the sun finishes setting. And those of you who tuned into our star tours before know that this is a very special object. It is not a star, it is a planet, and this planet is the planet Venus. Venus will be the brightest point of light you'll see in our evening skies tonight. It will be setting relatively early though, so not long after sunset it will disappear out of sight, but it will be so bright it'll be prominent even in the sky during the sunset before the sun finishes setting. Now the reason you can tell it's a planet and not a star is because planets do not twinkle in our night sky, whereas stars do twinkle. Planets are a lot closer than distant stars, so a lot more of their light is able to reach the Earth and penetrate the Earth's atmosphere. Stars are so distant from us that only a tiny amount of their light is able to pass through the atmosphere, and all the gases in Earth's atmosphere distort that little bit of light, which is why stars appear to twinkle, and in our software they even twinkle as well. But as you can see, planets do not twinkle. Now as Venus gets closer and closer to the sun in its orbital path, pretty soon we won't be able to see it in our evening sky. But it is still very bright and prominent right now, and if we zoom in on it, we'll see that it's actually exhibiting an interesting pattern here. Venus is in a crescent shape right now. Now the inner planets, Venus and Mercury, are the only planets that will appear in a crescent phase, and that's because they're closer to the sun than the Earth is. So this allows them to be visible. Well, this allows the Earth's angle to them to this is a weird way of explaining that. It's kind of hard to explain basically, but because they're closer to the sun than the Earth, the angle between the sun, the Earth, and these planets, Venus and Mercury, is able to be at the correct amount for us to see them in these thinner phases, like the crescent phases. So the outer planets that are farther away from Earth, basically, if you think about it, if we can see those planets, then we have to be looking away from the sun because they're farther away from the sun than the Earth is. And if we're looking away from the sun, then that means the sun is illuminating more of their face, so we see them in a more full phase. We see them sometimes slightly shadowed or gibbous, but we'll never see Mars or Jupiter or Saturn in a crescent shape unless we were farther away from the sun than they are. But Venus is one that you can see, and if you have a decent pair of binoculars or a basic telescope, this is a fun thing to check out because you can see that crescent shape on our sister planet Venus. So let's continue on. Let me just check, make sure. Eric did ask a question about the International Space Station, and that's a good question. We haven't heard a lot going on from them, and I'm going to save that for Friday. So if you tune in Friday, I'll do a little bit of catch up on seeing what experiments and missions the International Space Station has been doing since we last heard from them. Some of their missions have shifted a little bit, as we can imagine, as a lot of schedules have changed over the past couple months, but I'll do a full update on that on Friday for sure. So let's move back on over to our star tour here. Now, for those of you who joined me before, know that I like starting in the northern sky because there are a pair of familiar patterns in the northern sky that are fun to start with because many of us already know them. These two shapes look like big spoons in the sky. They are the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper are two very famous patterns, but they are not official constellations. Now, I did mention before, but a constellation is a specific type of thing. There are 88 constellations exactly, no more, no less. And if we put all the constellation lines up, I said if we put all the constellation lines up, there we go, we can see these patterns here. And there are 88. And these were actually picked back in 1930 by the International Astronomical Union. That's the same group of people who recently demoted Pluto, so you can thank them for that one as well. But they picked many of these constellations in the northern hemisphere based on Greek mythology. Constellations in the southern hemisphere were based on later European and American explorers. That's why a lot of southern hemisphere constellations are various navigation instruments like boats or compasses or telescopes. But the northern hemisphere constellations are often characters from Greek mythology. So 42 of these are animals, 29 are inanimate objects, and the other 17 are people or characters from mythology, like I said. But on a clear night, you can see way more than 88 stars. You can see about 2,000 stars with the naked eye. And it stands to reason that people around the world see more than just those 88 patterns, right? In fact, the reason that astronomers decided on 88 wasn't because of those shapes. It was actually because of the boundaries that circle them. By dividing the night sky into 88 sections, sort of like state boundaries, then astronomers can easily identify objects and categorize them. So if they find a nebula over here, they can say it's in the constellation, in this case, Cassiopeia. So this is really what a constellation actually is. But if there is a famous, but in many cases there are other famous star patterns that aren't part of those 88 shapes, and we have a name for them. We call them asterisms. So asterisms are basically just unofficial star patterns. And the Big and Little Dipper are asterisms. They're not official constellations. Now, these stars are part of two official constellations. They're called Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. That means the Big Bear and the Little Bear. The Big Bear contains the stars of the Big Dipper. The tail of the bear is the handle of the spoon here. The body of the bear contains the spoon plus these two stars. The head of the bear goes over to this star, and its legs extend up into the sky. Again, there's the tail, the body, the head, and the legs. It's upside down in the spring and summertime. Let's see if we can bring that up. Now, bears, as many of us know, do not have long tails, and it is actually kind of a mystery as to why. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Oh, you'd think I'd be able to figure out the controls by this point. Okay, well, we're just going to stick with the lines. So as I was saying, bears don't have long tails. And we don't really know why this constellation in many mythological traditions does have a long tail. It could have been a translation error, or it could have been, representing a different animal, but it is a bear with a long tail. Yes, that is kind of weird. And then Ursa Minor is the little bear, although its stars are much dimmer and, we don't often trace those stars, but you can maybe imagine a similar pattern there, with a long tail and a body. So there are a lot of stories about these bears from different cultures throughout history. The Native Americans told a story, or some Native American cultures told a story about a bear running through the sky. They saw this part of the spoon as the bear, and then these stars behind the bear were hunters chasing the bear throughout the night. Now, in their mythologies, some of the hunters would chase the bear all night long, but others would give up at a certain point. And we actually have a name for these stars. We have a category. So any star that stays up all night long is what we call circumpolar, and a star that sets is not circumpolar. The reason is that if we fast forward time, we will see that the stars are actually rotating around our night sky. And some of the stars will set in the west and disappear out of sight, only to rise again later in the east. But as you can see, some stars will stay up all night long, stars sort of in this region right here, and we call those stars circumpolar. Now, if you notice throughout the night, the stars are rotating around a certain point. And this point is a very famous point. It's a very famous star. Ooh, too far. It's called Polaris. Polaris is also nicknamed the North Star, and that's because it always points north. As you can see, as we are fast-forwarding time, all the stars in the sky move throughout the night except for one, and that is Polaris. It's the only star that doesn't move. That's why it's special. There's a common misconception that Polaris is the brightest star in the sky, but that's not true. In fact, Polaris is the 45th brightest star, so it's not even anywhere close. But like I said, in reality, the North Star is special because it does stay up all night long, as you could see when we were fast-forwarding time. So let's move on to another pair of constellations that are easy to spot. They are low in the northern horizon, below the North Star right now. The first one looks like a little W shape or a little zigzag. This constellation's name is Cassiopeia. Next to Cassiopeia is a house-shaped constellation, and this one's called Cepheus. Now, I'm pretty sure that ancient people had much better imaginations than we do today. They saw these boxes and squiggly lines in the sky as a bit more complicated patterns. These complicated shapes. Not really sure where they got that from, but there you go. So, in mythology, Cepheus and Cassiopeia were the king and queen of an ancient African nation. The queen Cassiopeia was very beautiful, but she was also very vain. She liked to brag about her beauty. In fact, in her picture here, you can just see above the horizon that she's holding a mirror, looking at herself. Now, one day, Cassiopeia boasted that she was more beautiful than the daughters of Poseidon, the god of the sea. When Poseidon heard about this, he was not very happy, as you can imagine. A mere mortal claiming she was more beautiful than his immortal daughters, he could not let that stand, so as punishment he cursed their land with years and years of flooding, washing away many of their crops and sending their kingdom into a terrible famine. Cepheus and Cassiopeia tried desperately to appease the god Poseidon and ease his wrath. They eventually did what any two good parents would have done in the situation, and they decided to sacrifice their own daughter to the sea god. They tied their daughter Andromeda to some rocks by the ocean so she could be eaten by Cetus, a giant sea monster, and one of Poseidon's other children. Parents of the year right there. Now don't worry folks, this story of course has a happy ending, but unfortunately I cannot tell it to you right now because Andromeda is a constellation that rises in our fall night sky. So I guess you'll just have to come back to the planetarium in the fall to see our fall star tour to find out how that story ends. How's that for a shameless plug? Let's continue on over to the west, where we can see Gemini the Twins setting in the early evening tonight. By the way, our star tour is taking place at about 10 p.m., which is about an hour after sunset. Gemini the Twins, this is an easy constellation to spot. It looks kind of like two stick figures holding hands. These two stars are the stick figures' heads. Here's one of their bodies, and here's his arm and legs. And then here is the other head, his body, arms, and legs. These twins were named Castor and Pollux, and they were a famous pair of Greek heroes. There we go. We've got Leo the Lion right above the Liberty Memorial and the Eternal Flame. This is a constellation you can spot by looking for another asterism, one of those unofficial star patterns. This one looks like a backwards question mark or a coat hanger hook. This is Leo the Lion's head. Here's his body, his front paws, and tail. Leo represents the Nemean lion. This was the ferocious beast that Hercules fought and defeated during the first of his 12 labors. It's kind of a tragic story about Hercules. Hercules was the son of the king of the gods, Zeus, but he was also the son of a mortal woman. Zeus often came down to Earth to socialize with humanity, and this often produced mortal offspring. Now, Zeus's goddess wife, Hera, eventually found out about Hercules' existence, but by this point Hercules had become a grown adult. But this didn't stop Hera from becoming very angry at Zeus, although instead of punishing Zeus, she decided to take her anger out on Hercules, and she drove Hercules mad with magic and forced him to accidentally kill his own family. Now, this made Hercules very sad and made him feel very guilty, and so he decided to force himself to accomplish 12 impossible tasks as punishment, and one of these tasks was defeating this ferocious beast called the Nemean lion. Moving right along, we have a constellation that is kind of hiding behind the memorial. Let me just go ahead and switch our view to a flatter view there. This constellation is Virgo the Maiden. This looks like a big stick figure towards the south. This is Virgo's head right here. Here are her arms, her body, and legs. Virgo represents a goddess of fertility or harvest. The Greeks called her Demeter, the Romans called her Ceres. She is often depicted as carrying an ear of grain in one hand, and the star in Virgo's hand is named Spica, which means ear of grain in Latin. Spica is one of the brighter stars in the night sky right now. And the brightest star you'll see tonight, remember Venus is not a star, but the brightest actual star you'll see is this one right here. Its name is Arcturus. It's part of a constellation called Boötus, who was sort of a hunter. He was said to be chasing the Ursa bears. In fact, Arcturus means watcher of the bear in ancient Greek. There's actually a fun little saying you can use to remember how to find Arcturus and Spica. See the handle of the Big Dipper over here? It's kind of shaped like an arc. Well, if you extend that arc across the sky, you can see it kind of passes through these two stars. And to remember how to find these stars, just remember this little saying. Arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica. Once again, from the handle of the Big Dipper, just arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica, and you can find and remember these two stars. I forgot to mention that there are a couple notable stars inside of Leo. The star at the front of Leo's paw is called Regulus, which means Little King. And the star at the end of Leo's tail is Denebula, which means Tail of the Lion. Now if we connect Denebula, Arcturus, and Spica, it forms a nearly perfect triangle up high in our spring skies. This triangle can be seen rising in the east after sunset tonight and up in the south later in the evening. This is the Spring Triangle, another famous asterism. This particular asterism is one that was used by ancient people to help them figure out the changing seasons. The way this works is that in the winter, you'll see the three stars of the Spring Triangle rising one after another, and then once all three are up after sunset, that tells you spring is here. The Spring Triangle has a more famous older sibling called the Summer Triangle, and we can actually see the first star of the Summer Triangle rising towards the east tonight. It is Vega. Vega is part of a constellation called Lyra the Harp, which is found as a little diamond near the star Vega. This harp belonged to Orpheus, a famous poet and prophet. That is the first star of the Summer Triangle, and later in the evening you'll see the second and third, which are Denebula and Altair. And once all three of these stars are up, that tells you that summer is officially here. Now Vega's kind of interesting. Although Vega seems to be pretty far away from the North Star, Vega will actually become the North Star in about 10,000 years, or 12,000 years. And that's because the Earth is undergoing something called precession. Now, if you have something that's spinning really quickly, like a top, then, well, it'll spin around its axis, but you'll notice it also does a very slow wobble. Now the Earth spins really quickly as well, relatively speaking, but it also does a slow wobble like this, and we call that precession. The Earth's precession wobble does one full wobble about once every 25,000 years. But that means that right now the North Pole is pointing at Polaris, but it won't always be pointing at Polaris because eventually it'll wobble away from Polaris. And in about 12,000 years, the North Pole will be pointing closer to Vega, and Vega will be the North Star. So that's kind of a fun fact, not a lot of people know. And if you think backwards in time, that means that even as recently as 2,000 years ago, the stars were not in the same position, and the North Star was not the North Star 2,000 years ago. Pretty crazy. And now that we've returned to our northern skies, that does bring us just about to the end of our regularly scheduled star tour. Now there are a couple other things worth mentioning. I did mention a couple things in the early morning sky. That comet, now it's not going to show up on our software here, but if I fast forward, I can show you where it will be. By the way, the moon is waning right now. It's in a waning gibbous phase. Waning means that it's getting darker and rising later in the evening, and gibbous means that it's more than half full, but not completely full. In a couple nights, it'll be in its third quarter phase, where it will appear half full and be 3/4 of the way through its cycle. So if you're wondering where the moon is, that's where Okay, and then we're going to pause right here at sunrise, and I'm going to show you, if you do want to find that comet, where it should appear tonight. And let me get my bearings here. Ooh, we're zoomed way out now. Ah, yes. All right. So the constellation Pisces should be right over here, and let's just put the lines up. Yep. So it's rising right over here, right behind the constellation Pegasus, which is a big box. I know, very original constellation shape. But Pisces looks like a big V in the sky. You won't be able to see it, though, because the sun will start to rise before then. But based on that chart we saw earlier, that comet should be visible kind of right around here. So there will be a very brief amount of time where it will still be dark enough to just barely see this comet rising right above the horizon inside of Pisces. So you're going to have to wake up pretty early. This is at 5 a.m., so, you know, around 4:30 or so, start looking, and you might be able to spot that comet with the naked eye. And the last thing I want to mention is the planets that we can see in the early morning sky. There are 3 planets visible right now, all lined up nicely. We've got Mars over here, the red planet, shining very brightly over, ignore that constellation there, over there towards the southeast. It is moving away from these other 2 bright dots near the moon, but these are 2 more planets, Saturn and Jupiter. And those planets, there we go, are actually getting closer to one another. They're actually going to be doing a little dance over the course of the next few months, where they're going to get really close, then move away, then get closer again, then move away, and then get really, really close. On December 21st, they will appear in conjunction, which means they'll be the closest that they ever appear in the night sky together. And with a good enough telescope, you'll be able to see both of them in the same field of view. And this is a very rare event. It only happens once every just about 30 years. It takes a long time for these 2 planets to synchronize up like that, so you'll definitely not want to miss this show. Later on this year, you will be able to see them in the early evening sky, so don't worry, you don't have to wake up too early to see these planets. But again, remember, look for those bright points of light that are not twinkling, and those are the planets in the night sky. And just seeing, we got another question from Eric asking why there are no new constellations being identified. And again, just to go back to what a constellation is, astronomers don't really care too much about the stories or shapes associated with these star patterns. They are mostly interested in these regions of the sky. And, you know, barring some catastrophic change to the structure of our universe that happens at a much quicker time scale than anything normally happens in the universe, this will be pretty much how the stars are laid out for as long as humans care to, care about it, really. So for that reason, astronomers are fine with just these shapes, just these sort of regions of the sky, and they'll keep these constellation designations at least. The stories, though, are always changing. They're changing with cultures, and a lot of the constellations that I've talked about that most of us are familiar with are constellations influenced by Western mythology, right? But there are a lot more mythologies out there, and actually this is an idea of something that I think we'll dive into on one of our Wednesday deep dives in the near future. If you're interested in this, please chime in the comments and let us know if you'd like to do this. But there are, countless other mythologies, from ancient mythologies to modern mythologies. So here we go. Let me turn the lines and names on, and then we'll see. So these names are a bit different, and some of the shapes are a little different. These are Arabic sky. This is the Arabic sky culture. So this is a lot of these constellations came before Greek mythology and heavily influenced Greek mythology. There's Babylonian mythology and astronomy, and then we can go towards the east to cultures that are totally separate from any Western civilization, and we can look at Chinese astronomy, and we can see that their traditional sky cultures have way more constellations than we do, and a lot of them are a little simpler, but they have their own stories that go along with them. There's Egyptian mythology and their influences that we can still see today in you know, our modern views of mythologies. There's even Hawaiian mythology. So Stellarium's really awesome. It has big write-ups about all these different sky cultures that are included. So if you want to learn more about them on your own time, you can. But again, if you are interested in this being a topic for one of our future Wednesday deep dives, please let us know in the comments. We would love to go by whatever you all are interested in. So thanks for asking that, Eric. Great question. And this is bringing us close to the end of our show. So if you have any last minute questions, be sure to throw them in to the comment section. And we may have time to answer them. If we don't get to your questions, don't worry. We will be answering them on Friday for our final Fan Friday. Final, at least for now. So last chance to throw in questions, guys. And while you're doing that, we will, let's hang out around this black hole again. Woo. So this black hole that we looked at before is a lot smaller than the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So it does not have an accretion disk like we've seen before. However, it does still influence the light around it. And so we can see that gravitational lensing occurring around here. And then let's see where Earth is relatively speaking. There it is. Let's actually go, let's see, this is HR 6819. Yep, so it's about 1,100 light years away, to be exact. But we can see there. It's right in the corner of the constellation Telescopium. Again, we can see the constellation regions there mapped out. So when we identified this black hole, we've cataloged it as being in the constellation Telescopium, even though it's really not near the star pattern, so to speak, but it is in that region of the sky. All right, so I'm getting the all clear that we don't have any pending questions. If you're watching this after the fact, if you're watching the recording, feel free to drop a question into the comments. We will check these before Friday and write any more questions down to answer those on Friday for our final Fan Friday. Don't forget, this Wednesday at 6 p.m. we will be doing a live stream show all about the Voyager Golden Record. So that's going to be a really fun live stream. It'll be a sort of a little listen along that we'll jam out to some space tunes that aliens may jam out to someday if they ever find the Voyager space probes. So don't miss that at 6 p.m. And if you missed any of our previous streams, you can always download or rewatch them rather on all of our Facebook pages. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the Arvin Gottlieb Planetarium page, be sure to do that as well. So thank you all once again for joining me this evening for this fun little star tour. Don't forget to keep these types of experiences and programs going while we're all stuck at home and into the future when we do get to go back. Union Station and the Planetarium could really use your help, whether that's just sharing links to our streams and telling your friends and family about it. Becoming a member. Members to Union Station have tons of benefits to both the Planetarium and to a lot of other things around Union Station. And if you'd like to donate, you can also find links to donate at unionstation.org if you'd like to support in that way. But anything you can do helps, and your support just watching and asking questions is a huge deal as well. And it keeps me excited and wanting to come back. And I have been loving doing these streams, and I hope I get to keep doing them for a long time, even when we do get to go back to the Planetarium. So be sure to tell your friends, like and subscribe, and hope you all have a wonderful Monday night and Tuesday. I'll see you here, same place, same time, same Pleiades star cluster on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I have been your Planetarium specialist, Patrick Hess. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. See you next time.